Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and I want to make the showcasing video for a couple new Frontline Gaming mats, the Fat Mats, or Table War, whatever you want to call them, available from FrontlineGaming.org. And just so you know, we have a bit of an agreement with Frontline Gaming where they actually supply us these mats for free in exchange for some advertising. But that was after much deliberation a few months back because I didn't want to obviously advertise something that I did not believe in myself. But if you've been watching our battle reports, then you know that we definitely like the Table War or Frontline Gaming table mats because we use them in pretty much every single one of our battle reports now. So I want to show off a couple of their new ones, or relatively new, their high-tech map and their swamp mat. And like I said, you can go to frontlinegaming.org, and they have several locations where you can buy now from. So if you're in North America or Europe, I think there's one in Australia too, but I can't remember. So that'll help with the shipping costs because that was an issue before. And so we have this high-tech map first. Now, these come in both 4x4 and 6x4 variants. We actually got the 6x4 one, but since we were using it for Infinity, we chopped it down to 4x4. So you'll notice there's a bit of a rough edge along here because, well, we don't have the cutting machines that they would have when they go to create them. So this is a 6x4 reduced to a 4x4, but you can actually buy a 4x4. What we do is we actually use the last 2 feet of it for some display boards in some of our studios as well. So this doesn't 100% accurately represent it because I don't know if this is the 4 feet you get or if it's more central. But we love this board because as much as it's high tech, it's a little generic, which is always good because it allows you to play in a few different games. Infinity is the one that comes to mind the most because Infinity likes a lot of this kind of city high-tech looks with lots of the terrain. But this could totally be played with 40K. You could play it with any other science fiction or post-apocalyptic or anything that's not fantasy, because obviously the way it looks would not work with any fantasy or War Machine type games. The thing I really like about the Frontline Gaming mats is they do a really good job with the artwork on the mat. We've seen mats from a lot of different companies, and as much as the other ones provide some variety, because Frontline Gaming doesn't obviously make every possible variation of detail, I've noticed that some of the other companies, you can tell where they've copied and pasted things. You can tell things aren't blended very nicely, and the graphics just aren't that nice. Whereas Frontline Gaming, they do a really good job that when you look closely at it, it's very seamless in the graphic work. That it just looks like it's been created properly. That it's not just, you can't find elements that you just look like they've copied and pasted it, even though obviously you know that they would have in the creation. It doesn't look that way. So these mats are great. Now the mats overall are awesome because they have the same material. They're the same material as a mouse pad. And so they're waterproof. You can spill water on it. They're wonderful to roll dice on. I can't really, except for what you're hearing right here, I can't fully express how nice it is to roll dice and pick up dice from it. We're used to for the longest time we were playing on tables like this, which are your typical plywood and then sand and static grass. And as much as it provides a nice texture, and it looks pretty good on camera too, these mats give you an even nicer texture to play on. And so it's just nicer. It doesn't hurt to rub your hands against it or to scratch your knuckles across. And so it's just a really good material. And so very, very nice mats. They store really nicely. They roll up, and they sometimes if you roll them up for a while, they'll get this little bit of a curl on the end, but that curl actually goes away pretty quickly. I just unrolled this in the past hour, but by the end of the day, or probably by tomorrow, that curl would be gone. So we could just roll it from the opposite side next time, just to prevent that from staying, but it won't stay that way. Even if you put a weight on it and somehow get a crease, that crease will eventually go away, unless it's really bad, of course, but, well, they're very durable is all I'm trying to say. So we have this high-tech map, and then we have the swamp mat. And I love this swamp mat because they already came out with the forest map, which was a much more brilliant green. And when I first saw that forest map, I wasn't a big fan of it because of how bright it was. When we started filming on it, I realized that it provided a nice contrast for the battle reports, but still in person it wasn't my favorite one. Then they came out with this one, and I love it because it provides the muted green that I would expect to see on a forest board. So you can actually use it just as a forest board, but it also has the characteristics for a swamp board as well. Like if you look closely, you see things like bridges or planks And we've even got this little bit of a ruins in the middle. But the nice thing is all the details are subtle enough that you can set up terrain over top of it and it won't look wrong. Because some of the mats, if they have too many features, like the high-tech one is great, but the roads are obviously roads. So if you put a building on the road, it won't look right. So where I have the swamp one, if I stuck a ruins right here or trees right here, it would still blend in with everything else. And you can easily ignore these bridges, or you can appreciate them for what they are too. Like there's pathways. So you just look closely and you can see just how nice the detail is. And yet at a distance, it kind of becomes more generic, which is what you want, because then you can stick almost any type of terrain on it to make it look interesting. So I really like this board. It works well for our death worlds, or we can still use it for forests or ruins. It just suits all those really well. And obviously this is very generic. You can play this, use this in any game, whether it's futuristic, fantasy, steampunk, post-apocalyptic, even historical. All those would work on a mat like this because it's nice and generic. So great work from Frontline Gaming on these mats. I strongly suggest that especially if you're looking to like have games in your basement, these mats are just so indispensable because you can roll them up and store them, whereas the actual gaming tables can take up a lot of space, and if you just won't be able to get the variety you want because you just can't store that many. We have the advantage here of having a big storeroom to store all our tables, but most people don't have that. And I've even seen a lot of stores start to pick these up too because of how durable they are. And when you have a lot of gamers playing on your tables, they tend to get destroyed very quickly, whereas these do not. So go check them out, frontlinegaming.org, and they have a distributor near you, and happy wargaming.